Have you ever said something under pressure and then immediately regretted it or thought back on it later and been like, why did I say that? That's not who I am. If stress turns you reactive or sharp or withdrawn or overly accommodating, even, I've got some clarity and some relief for you today. My name is Elyssa Smith. I'm a trauma informed executive coach. And today, on our episode of Unlock Your Blocks podcast, we are talking about why stress and survival mode disconnect you from your true self and why that version of you that shows up under pressure is not a character flaw. So, when your nervous system perceives a threat, it prioritizes protection over connection. It prioritizes protection over your core values. It prioritizes protection over literally everything else, including your long-term thinking. You're not going to have in that moment that of pressure, you're not going to have that long-term thinking that says, if I say these things, we might not be friends later. So your system is like, no, I got to protect myself at all costs. So we have that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. So if you've heard of fight or flight, most people have. The freeze mode is when you maybe get tongue-tied or you just can't express yourself or you lose all your thoughts or you can't move forward in a decision process. And then the fawn mode is to please your way to safety. And I have to say, more and more, I am seeing that the most common thing most high achieving women have in common is their capacity for the fawn response. And that just means that they are constantly attuned to whether everybody else is upset with them or not upset with them. And what do they need to do to make sure that that person is happy with them and is not disappointed with them. I am the first to admit this is an issue. I am a recovering fawner. Thank you very much. My name's Elyssa and I have the fawn response. But the thing is, we learned early on, however it was best in our family of origin to respond to stress, chaos, conflict, and we committed, okay? Your brain made pathways and we are moving toward those pathways, whether we like it or not as adults, until we rewire. So as a kid, staying regulated and being true to yourself and being grounded was way less important to our survival system than staying safe or approved of or in control. That fight, flight, freeze, fawn thing those are adaptive ways to survive emotional pressure, unpredictability, chaos. All of those things over time create an automatic response in whatever our brand of, kind of a sabotagey response is. Once you're an adult and you are the one in charge of getting your needs met, we don't really need those adaptive responses anymore, but we still have them. And so we will say things that we regret. We will consider what we've said far beyond the time that we should be considering it and rethinking it. That maybe I'm the only one, but I don't think so. The 2 a.m. brain that is going on a spiral, like, oh gosh, I felt so stupid when I said that. Or, I was under pressure and I snapped at that person. And I just have this ick inside of me. So that all comes really naturally for someone who had a lot of pressure as a kid. And we will have learned that protection is more important than keeping a relationship. Okay, protection is more important. It depends on the relationship, by the way. Sometimes it depends on the person that we're having that response with under pressure. Maybe we will kind of bite, I'm using air quotes, kind of emotionally or verbally bite someone, but we wouldn't do that to the other person, like our boss or something. Maybe we would start the fawn response where it's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. But we look back on it and we're like, I shouldn't have apologized. Why did I do that? That made me look, or that feels like I was this weak person, but I'm not. I'm a strong woman. I'm a strong high achiever. Why do I automatically lose my confidence around this person? So you're not acting like yourself. Why do I automatically get like angry into that fight mode with this other person? We're not acting like ourselves. So some of the ways that this can look when you learned as a kid that basically protection was the main thing, and your nervous system, without running it by you, by the way, is going to just make snap judgments on how we need to respond to each person if we have a conflict. So if you're under pressure or under stress and your kiddo comes up and asks a question, but you're really concentrating on the work problem you're dealing with, you might snap at them and then have repair work to do later because you weren't acting like your normal kind self because you had stress from work, which was making you feel some kind of way that you felt as a kid. And it put you in a position of putting protection over the connection with your child in that moment. So you might snap at the people you love. You might shut down emotionally. Your values will definitely go out the window. Our core values are something that we are able to tune into when our body's feeling safe, but it doesn't really matter if you value integrity if a tiger is chasing you. And that's automatically what your system thinks is happening every time you have stress, every time there's a conflict, every time there's something that's putting pressure on you, a deadline. Your system interprets that as going to be eaten by a wild animal if we're not careful. So it's like, does it matter if we smooth over this relationship right now? No, because I got to find a tree to escape. That is all it's concerned about. Okay. So you're going to have these shutdown responses. You're going to over apologize. You're going to be more controlling than is natural for you to be in that heightened state. You're going to say things you regret. You might neglect things that you would normally take care of, such as your emotional health, your physical health. Those things just kind of like you also might just disappear emotionally. And then you'll deep shame and regret later when your system isn't feeling under so much pressure. Typically you might feel the ick right after. I do. If I say something to somebody that I'm like, we should have waited until I wasn't triggered to say that thing, I feel ick immediately. But you might not realize it until, again, 2 a.m. Elyssa wakes up and is like, what did we do? So it's actually not a defect in you. Because when you are a high achiever and you have this cycle already, let's prioritize protection of ourselves. Our protector parts will come out instead of, or over, instead of values, or instead of connection, or instead of relationships. When you're a high achiever, you also have high achievement naturally increases pressure. It's kind of a cycle, man. I mean, it's like you can't stop achieving high amounts of perfection and high amounts of really good performance without confronting the part of you that's driving you to do it. And so we have this inner tangle that's happening, and it causes our survival responses to escalate instead of decrease when we are high achievers. So I'm laughing. It's really not funny, but it is kind of funny when you say it all out loud. It's like, oh my gosh, are we doomed? Are we doomed, ladies? No, we are not doomed. One more thing that you want to watch for is there can be this really painful gap when you're acting outside of your norm, outside of your true self frequently. And I have really high achieving women come to work with me because they're noticing, like, I am literally picking fights with my partner right now. Like, my business is doing great. We're doing well. The lifestyle is at the level we wanted. The success is there. But I'm going to blow up my marriage because I can't calm down. I can't not stop snapping at my partner. Or it'll be like, I have these incredible clients who are really concerned about, they want to be good parents. And so they will come in and be like, okay, so everything is going pretty well, but literally every time my kid opens their mouth, I am a hot mess. I snap, I'm forgetting things, I'm blaming them, and I always have to apologize. And thank God we do have the capacity to apologize, especially to our children. It's a really wonderful thing. And that's something that previous generations did not do. So they just didn't know the value of it. So now we know the value of apologizing. But wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to constantly go around cleaning up our own messes of regret because we acted outside? Another thing, this was the worst for me before I started kind of tackling some of this and working on my little and tiny T traumas that had these hidden roots of where my system felt the need to protect me. I would over apologize or over accommodate someone who was abusive toward me. I had abusive relationships, abusive bosses, and I would over apologize in that fawning response and then go later be like, what am I doing? That was inappropriate behavior. Why did I apologize to that person? I deserved an apology in that moment, but I gave an apology to smooth things over because my inner little girl is terrified of someone not being pleased with us. So you have to know where this comes from in you to recognize what's happening when you feel that, like the shame spiral and the regret starts kicking in. So how do we deal with this? We just eliminate all the stress. Okay, that's the solution. No, that doesn't make any sense. We can't do that. And also I love the analogy of a palm tree versus an oak tree. So in Florida and other places that are more tropical, they have palm trees, and palm trees are designed so that designed. I mean, I do believe there's intelligent design behind everything, but they are made to withstand hurricane level winds and weather that comes off of the ocean and off of the water. the way that they do this is not by standing their ground and being really firm and just like, oh, I'm just going to muscle my way through. No, like if you watch a palm tree, they will bend almost all the way down to the ground in a windstorm. And that is how they stay rooted. Whereas an oak tree in the same windstorm will just uproot because it's very rigid, right? So palm trees are designed to move with stress. Oak trees are not. They will just give up. And so, is the solution to get rid of stress? No, because a tree that has gone through the windstorm, what do you think happens to the roots? Are the roots brittle? Are the roots, ready to give up at any moment? No, the roots are strong. The roots hold through any storm that comes. So we have to become like the palm tree, the resilience, the roots that go deep in the face of conflict and challenge. So we're not trying to get rid of the stress. Although I listen, if you find a way to do that, let me know. I would love a stress-free life. But because that's not really possible that we know of, the goal really, when you are looking at this response in you that causes you to not act like yourself when you're stressed, the goal is to notice when your survival mode has taken over, and then you want to just pause before you react. So here's a little exercise to try. When you feel activated, first of all, you have to notice what those sensations are so that you can understand when it's happening, okay? But when you feel activated, when you're in that escalated state, I want you to stop for a second, take a breath if you can, remind yourself, I'm in protective mode and not my true self right now. So when you can take a slow breath and remind yourself, I'm in protective mode. That's why I feel the anxiety. That's why I feel the stress. That's why it's hurt. That's why the heaviness is there. You can take your slow breath and then reconnect to your body before you respond in the moment in a way that you regret. It is challenging to give yourself a beat before you actually respond to someone in that moment. But if you can learn how to do it, if you can train your system on how to do it, you can absolutely have this skill in your pocket anytime you need. And you can say, oh, there's that uncomfortable feeling that usually precedes something I regret. And so then you say, okay, I'm in protective mode. This is not my true self. I'm not going to say words while I'm not my true self. And then you take a slow breath and then you move your body a little bit. See if you can postpone your answer to the person if someone's asking you something. My go-to with my little guy, if he walks in, I'm in the middle, maybe at the end of my workday, because sometimes he forgets our rule that he can't come bursting into my office at the end of the day. He has to wait for me to come out, but sometimes he bursts in anyway and he forgets he's a kid. And instead of being like, get back outside, I'm finishing something, then I just say, I'm almost ready. I'll be out in a minute. And then if he starts battering me with the questions, as an 11-year-old is prone to do, I just say the same thing. I'll be out there in a minute. Wait for me in the loft. So we have a system where I don't have to actually say words that will hurt him in those moments of stress. And you can come up with your own as well. So to take this even a step further, it's really important that you start doing some nervous system exercises. And this sounds like it could be like this big thing. It's really not. It's really not. And there are 5 that you can get started with today. If you're a woman and you want to download my free guide with 5 nervous system hacks that you can just do at your desk anytime, it's super quick, super easy. They're easy to remember. Just go to ElyssaSmith.com/reset. You can also find that in the show notes, and you will be able to download that from there and get yourself started on your path to regulation and acting like who you really are all the time. So until then, I hope you take good care of yourself, and I will see you here next time.